So fill me in on Finn. How's he doing?
He's good. He's a pretty good dog.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean,
So it's just like needing the advanced stuff now?
Yeah. He's, we've done a few training classes just at like Petco just to work on like basic stuff and keep him busy during the winter. But now we sort of want to get him better off leash. He's pretty good off leash. Like he has pretty good recall, but there are some times where like you can tell he gets a little distracted.
like the first time we took him on a walk one day, I think it was kind of this time of year or something like that. We took him to, there's a school on like Racine and Webster or whatever it is, and obviously there's some dogs running around there, and we took him there one time. It's like, should we try it?
Yeah. We used to live right there.
Like just see what happens.
It's
and
like fenced in enough that
Yeah,
he
it's-
felt comfortable.
like let him like run around, and he did fine. But as we've gone along, it's been nice to again give him the freedom to run around and socialize with dogs and everything like that. But again, like MG said, there were probably once, if not maybe yesterday too, where he just like kind of went off.
Yeah.
Just gets.
But then he came back.
Yeah.
Sure, but
So-
it's still a little...
It was a little too far.
Yeah.
He realizes once he's too far from us, though. Like he's like, oh,
The look
where
back.
did they go? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, I think for where he's at, he does fine.
We're going on vacation with my family in June to Wisconsin, and there's like no fence in the yard.
I see.
So, well, I mean, my sister has a dog too. Two other dogs will actually be there. Like we'll never let them out there without somebody out there, but just having the peace of mind, knowing that we could,
I gotcha.
get him a
Go
little better
off
trained.
and explore the entire forest.
So I think the park you're talking about is Travis Park.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And they're redoing it right now, I think.
Yes.
Or at least hopefully they're done with it soon.
we used to live on Clifton and Webster, which is the street right over from
yeah,
Racine.
sure.
There's a cluster of dogs. I know a lot of people have moved, like some, because we had a lot of clients from that area. And it's funny because I met my wife through clients that I had that go to Travis Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's how we met. Is I trained her dog.
Oh,
and
nice.
then she hit on me just for
Yeah.
just so you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a dog named Nash with Melissa. There used to be a dog named Shadow with Paige, but I believe they moved. There's Roxy with Naranga. There's like quite a few. I know some have stopped going there because obviously as people move and new people come in, the newer dogs that were coming in weren't as trained. So then the people, they're like, then there was like a little bit of tension there because their dogs were like misbehaving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but chances are, if you see someone with an e-collar in the area there, especially at Trebs, most likely I trained them.
Yeah. But I will say that we've taken him to Oz Park a few times, and that's been good too because they already have the park district sets up that like all the fencing there for the baseball fields and everything. So I feel a little bit better taking him there than maybe Travis Park
Because there's the openings there.
Yeah.
It's like further off the street too. I feel like.
Yeah,
So if
and I think the dogs collectively do better being clustered like where they're all hanging out.
And there's a little bit more of a buffer from where they play and then the street, whereas Trebs is like as soon as you're out.
Yeah.
Because that actually happened to Nash. We had classes 1 and 2. Class 3 is typically recall. And between class 2 and class 3, they were at Trebs Park. Milo was another dog I trained, and he saw his best friend Milo walking across Sheffield. Exactly.
Want to go say hi?
Yes. And then she ended up doing 127, which we'll talk about, which is the highest level you can go. Continuous, which is the harshest correction you can give, because she was like, it was either either he was going to hit the street anyways, or I gamble this thing that I just started training with is going to return him, which is what happened.
Yeah.
Because she was concerned that she had screwed up the training. Because it was such an extreme.
I can see that.
Yeah, and I was like, that's exactly what you do because it's an emergency situation. So, so with the remote collar, I can't remember if we discussed already the technology. Are you familiar with what it does?
We briefly got into it.
think
My
just
sister's dog is
conversation,
e-collar trained, so I think I understand it.
Okay, so it's a
well.
muscle stimulator.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they hear electric collar, they usually think electricity. So they usually think you're like shocking or electrocuting the dog, which is incorrect.
Yeah.
It's the same technology that they use on humans. If you go to a chiropractor or physical therapist, they put those.
Oh,
little,
the E-stem.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And it moves the muscles. It's the same exact thing.
Got it.
The difference is with the E-stem, it works continuously to relax the muscle or to break up scar tissue on the muscle or to alleviate pain, right? It's meant to do its work for a period of time. Whereas with remote collar, only when you press the button will the dog feel stimulation, okay? There is a continuous function, as I mentioned, but it's up to 12 seconds, and then it caps out. So you'd have to release and then press again in order to deliver continuous stimulation.
Got it.
Also with eStim, there's different ways that it'll pulsate, whereas remote collar, there's just two different ways. There's just the initial contraction, and then there's the continuous contraction, but there's no kind of variance other than that, okay? So the reason why it's my go-to tool, especially if I'm training an adult dog, so any dog over 6 months that comes to me, I just jump to remote collar.
Yeah.
TK much younger, so between 2 months to 6 months, I tell people it's basic puppy stuff, food-based training, gentle leader with clicker, crate training, potty training, whatever. Can we train a puppy at 2 months on e-collar? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just that the general public isn't comfortable
Seeing the puppy.
with that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So typically by 6 months, the puppy has driven them crazy enough that they're like, okay, now I need something that's going to work, and then they're ready for e-collar.
Yeah.
So, but technically speaking, yes, we can train a puppy as young as 2 months on remote collar already.
Yeah.
My mentor does it all the time because he does like service puppies, service
sure.
dogs.
Yeah.
So he'll have them at 3 months already walking off leash, you know, and then people are like, oh, that's crazy. I was like, yeah, it's perfectly doable. It's just being comfortable with doing it. Okay. So
Getting some looks maybe too. Yeah.
yeah. So, but it's the only tool, logically speaking, that can give you off-leash control. Because every other tool requires, like with food, he has to be interested in the food, right? So if he's doing something that's more rewarding, food now loses its value.
Right.
Gentle leader, prong collar, slip chain, harnesses, whatever. The moment you unclip that leash, we no longer have any means of control. With remote collar, on or off leash, and we get sometimes up to a mile range with certain systems, we have contact with the dog.
Wow.
So if he was given a command after the training and everything, and one day he decided like, but I don't want to do it today. You're going to do it because I have this thing that's going to make you do it. Exactly. You know, because we have to remember that, you know, dogs are living creatures. He technically has free will to a degree.
Yeah. Sure.
Right? So if, you know, you call him and he's like, well, you know, I'm at the park playing with my friends and I only do this once a week or once a day, the value of that activity is very great.
Yeah.
You know, because we spend most of our time inside.
Right.
So then if it's
or
like
on a walk or
exactly. So when we have, even if we have the food, he's like, I'm only going to do this so often. This is more rewarding. I'm going to choose not to return. Right. It's all normal. So when I hear clients talk about like, well, when does a dog learn to not need the collar or something? I go, in my opinion, it's technically not a thing. It's like what people refer to it as the dog learns to be a good dog, you know? And I go, that's not a thing. Dogs don't proactively one day wake up and decide like, oh, like I'm going to just be obedient now and like, you know, do everything my owner tells me. It's because we have the ability to reinforce if needed through negative consequence. Okay. So question on you that so far. What do you, obviously recall would be one thing, right, that we need. What else does he need to be able to do?
I lean more towards solely the recall.
Hey.
Only just to know that, again, like he wouldn't like just beeline and just like go off and run away from us.
I think holding commands longer would be nice too.
Okay, so, like holding a sitter down or something?
Yeah. Like with the gentle leader, like he'll sit, but it's like, then he turns off.
Yes. So we can fix that too. So there's 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. With puppies, I don't really do heel because realistically speaking, I think we may have reviewed it. I think you were the client that we covered it, but we're kind of going back and forth.
Sounds familiar.
But typically with puppies, I don't do heel because realistically speaking, like they're going to be more involved in what's in the environment than what's in your hand, okay? Unless you're using all his meals and stuff solely for the training. And then if like he doesn't take it because he's too distracted, and they go, well, then you don't eat. And eventually hunger overrides the distraction. And then we can get more out of it that way. But most of the time, dogs, once they hit 6 months, are like, yeah, I don't care about that anymore. Like, I want to investigate what's in the environment.
Yeah, I want to explore.
Yes.
Right.
So then we can get an actual working heel. And all commands can be taught to an off-leash level. Sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. It's just a matter of, does the owner want them to all be off-leash reliable? Okay. Now, you guys are already going to be a step ahead. because you already did foundational training. What we're doing is simply kind of clearing up the conversation and going like, hey, bud, when we tell you to sit, it's sit and then don't get up.
Yeah.
Right? So positive is great because it reinforces, it's an incentivizer. But unfortunately, when it comes to correcting things or like reinforcing no, for example, it has no bearing.
Yeah.
Because that's where consequences come into play. So I'm not against positive reinforcement. We use it all the time. I just don't rely on it to create reliable obedience in the long run.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we think of e-collar, a lot of times people also think of it as a punisher, and a lot of trainers still think of it as a punisher. So what that means is they will shape everything with the food, and then they go, okay, you've had 2 weeks of food training, so now we're going to implement the bad thing. So if they say sit and the dog doesn't sit, they would correct the dog for not sitting. The problem with that is it's a big jump, because you go from when you sit, I give you love and praise and
the
treats,
reward.
and then if you don't sit, I punish you, and there's no bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. What I do is I recondition everything through pressure. So if you pull up and push on his hindquarters, what does that create?
Pressure.
Pressure.
Yeah.
And what position would he go into?
Oh,
Would sit.
sit.
The sit
Yeah.
position,
Yeah.
right? And the moment he sits, what happens?
Good job.
Good job.
Yeah.
And then everything stops, right? We stop pulling up, we stop pushing down. So that's pressure. Remote is also pressure. It's just a different way of delivering pressure, right? Your gentle leader, when you pull up, creates pressure, and when he sits, we would alleviate that pressure, right? The thing is the gentle leader only creates so much pressure, right? So dog goes, okay, it's annoying, but whatever, I'm willing to get up 20 times, right? With remote pressure, we have 127 different variances, right? Typically, we start about 15. That's where most dogs tend to feel it, and then we go from there.
Right.
Okay. His size, his breed, his age, none of that determines the collar. He determines the collar.
Okay.
So I have 2 cases right now. They're 2 4-week board and trains. One of them's like a 90-pound Great Dane. The other one's about a 70 to 80-pound Malinois. Okay. And the Malinois is high anxiety, high flight. Okay. So if you take her out, she just wants to
Run.
escape. Okay.
Gone.
Her number was 75-80. The Great Dane, who just started this past Saturday, his number is 25-30.
Okay.
But he's a more stable dog.
Right.
Okay. But he's also more receptive to the collar. So you would look at them and you would think like, oh, probably the Great Dane's going to have a high number because it's a big boy. And I've had Danes that are like that, but I've also had Danes like him who are just super sensitive, super receptive to the collar, right? So I've even had aggressive dogs where you would think, oh, it's going to be a very high number. They're super sensitive, and we're able to correct all the aggression with a low setting. Okay, but I've also had dogs, could be same breed, with high settings, right? So this is all the things that we determine through the training process.
And obviously starting with the baseline of like that 15 you said,
Correct.
right?
We start there, and then we work our way up, right? So I have a client that I had before you who's a reactivity case, and it was a very intense reactivity case, and the owner wasn't making any progress on his own. So in the 3rd class, I go, today we're going to cover reactivity. I'm going to bring a dog out. We're going to work on it. It's a blue heeler. Obedience-wise, his number is 25. Reactivity-wise, we have to go all the way to 90, 95.
Wow.
And then he finally stopped. Okay, and it took me the better part of 45 minutes. Like we had to drill it out, and I had to use a prong collar with the e-collar, so I needed a little bit more pressure.
Right.
And then we were finally able to get the dog to stop the reactivity, and I told the owner this is why you were struggling, is because we needed an additional tool, and the owner was also only going to 70, because you can't help but feel like you're screwing things up in some way.
Yeah, I feel like there's this little bit of guilt when you like up the meters by so much, right?
Once we did the class, he's like, okay, I see now.
Right.
But the reason we started low and go to high is so that the human sees the journey. They see everything below 90 didn't work, but then once I hit 90 plus the prong collar, all of a sudden my dog stopped the reactivity.
Boom.
Yes, I already know. I come in to go, yeah, this is going to be a case, right? But if I just jump straight to the answer, the human they're going to doubt.
Yeah.
They're going to go, how do I know that nothing less would have worked?
Right.
So even though it takes longer and it can be a little bit annoying or inconvenient for the owner because they want the answer right away.
Yeah.
When they get the answer, they finally go like, okay, I see why we did it this
makes
way.
sense now.
So with him, obviously, we're not dealing with that kind of stuff, but we never know. His number could be high. It just means he's a resilient dog. I had a golden retriever that I trained. His name was Webster. He was 6 months old when we trained.
Cute.
Because they got him on Webster.
Yeah.
His number on the first day was 90. Okay. took it like a champ. Okay. They came back the following week. It dropped down to like 60, 70.
Okay.
Okay. But then that was his number. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're like, but he's so sweet. I'm like, he's sweet personality wise,
Yeah.
but physically, he's a sturdy dog.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why when we come in, I go, it doesn't matter. We figure it out. We start low, work from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So the first thing that we always teach is heel. E-collar makes dogs move. So if you put an e-collar on him on your own and you were to press the button and get contact, the first time he feels it, he'd probably jump
Yeah, do like a little
and then
shake
try to
around.
walk away.
Yeah.
Okay, because he's thinking, I don't know what that was, but I'm going to try to escape it, right? So the heel exercise is a moving exercise, right? So when we start to layer the collar in, he's going to want to move, and what we're doing is we're teaching him how to direct the movement, which would be to walk with you. So eventually he learns, hey, when I'm in this pocket next to my owner, that thing that I don't like turns off.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that's how we get to the off-leash stuff. So if I'm walking with my dog off-leash and they happen to stray and I tap the collar, boom, it would bring
right
them
back
back
next
to the leg. Exactly, without the need of a leash or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is e-collar is a stressor because it's consequence and it's meaningful consequence. Walking helps alleviate stress. So as we're doing the training, we're building stress, but then at the same time, we're balancing out through the walk itself. In some cases, dogs will be very anxious, flighty, nervous. Sometimes you even see defensive type behavior because those are those stress responses, right? And we're actively putting them under stress. The way we get them over that is repeated exposure. So when people see the dog go under stress, instinctually you go, I want to do less of the thing that's stressing them out. But it's the opposite. You have to do more of to get them over that. So heel is something that most people walk their dogs 3 times a day, 7 days a week. So that's 3 times a day, 7 days a week. We're exposing them to the stressor, and then we get them over it faster. When people try to pull back or do less of or kind of dance around it, they're just prolonging the process.
Right.
You know, when you just approach it and go, okay, this is what we're doing, and then your energy as well. Some people go, oh, I know, buddy. It's time to train, right? As opposed to treats, hey, ready to train, right?
Yeah.
And then they go like, well, the dog doesn't like the e-collar. I'm like, yeah, because you're telling him, oh, I know, right? So the dog was like, well, if you don't like it, then I'm not going to like it.
Like if he hears the excitement from us when we put
Yeah.
it on him, then he has like the association.
Exactly. So I always tell people, be neutral or upbeat, right? So it's kind of like if you ask your friend, if they see a movie, and you're like, hey, how was the movie? And you're like, eh. Like you already know.
It's like,
how
oh, it sucked.
Exactly.
Like-
You know the energy. So you're like, all right, well, maybe I don't want to see that movie anymore,
Right.
right? So my guys, they love the e-collar. If I just even move it because I'm like rearranging stuff, they come running like, where are we going? Right?
Let's go.
Because they know it means we're going to go for a walk, and also it means you get off-leash freedom. You know, so in the beginning, it's a little bit of boot camp, right? Because there's going to be consequences, there's going to be discipline. But as he starts to learn the game and then make better decisions and then avoid the collar, because he's going to learn, well, if I do this when they say this, that thing doesn't turn on and it'll stay off. You start to see the dog open up, okay? Plus, when I get clients like, for example, with Woofy, the reactive dog, they don't want to walk him because he was blowing up at everything and he was loud. You know, so now that we're starting to get that reactivity under control and make progress, they're like, oh, we can go on more walks with our dog now.
Right.
You know, so
You
now
can
the dog
enjoy being outside and just like.
Exactly. You know, so with him, he's already a good dog. So in these cases, what I tell people is like, you're just making a good dog great.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm usually, my niche is making bad dogs good
Yeah.
or decent, right?
Yeah.
When we get a dog like
Yeah.
Finn, I'm like, it's even better,
Yeah.
right? So with this level of training, I've even had clients where like, they had to like just fly with the dog out of nowhere,
Oh.
you know, and then they do the whole service dog thing. Unfortunately, it's not regulated, you know.
Yeah.
And they're like, Jesse, do you think I can fly with my dog? I go, yes,
Yeah.
because you've done your homework.
Yeah.
And you're not someone who's abusing it, right? Because if the dog looks really well trained and is friendly, nobody questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. TSA,
Nobody
pilot,
questions.
like no. Yeah,
Nobody questions. If you tell him to lay down and he lays down and doesn't move for 2 hours, they
Right.
go, okay, that must be a service dog.
Yeah.
Nobody questions. Exactly. So they're able because I trained the dog, when something happens, if they've done their homework, it's not an issue for them.
Yeah.
They're able to just kind of go with it. Okay. So it just comes down to how much or how well trained you want him to be. Okay. Because he already has the baseline, I would most likely put you guys at around, bare minimum. You want to do in person?
Yeah.
Okay. 6 might be stretching a little bit. 9 for sure. If you wanted everything up to an off-leash level, we could get it done.
Okay.
If he was a completely blank dog, then it's a 12-week program.
Got it.
Okay. The only thing new that we'd have to, or not new because we did review it, would be essentially the heel. But then everything else, we're just layering the collar over it. Okay. I don't want to put too much in a short amount of time because that's just going to stress him out because he's having to take on a lot to learn more in a shorter amount of time, which, as I said, 9 is a nice buffer. But if we did 6, it would be 2 on heel. That's fairly standard. 1 on recall. 1 on place, which is stationary control, which starts the extended stay process. The sit and down stuff I can typically get done in a class, but then if we're looking towards off-leash type stuff, we do cover stay. Stay is like the least useful command because everything we teach has implied stay. Okay, when you do e-collar training, it's way different than food-based training. So when you mentioned earlier, like you tell him to sit and it'll last a little bit, but then he breaks, not with remote collar. Like right away, the dog starts holding it for a period of time. Okay.
You just put in park, literally.
Yes. So when we say sit, it means put your butt down, don't move. It's implied.
Yeah.
We only use the word stay is if, like right now, he's laying down, right? Did you tell him to lay down? No. He chose to do that.
Yeah.
So let's say I've already conditioned everything and I decided, you know what, buddy, I actually need you to hold this while I go to the retail room. Stay. Because he's already laying down. So I'm layering the stay over the position that he chose, but now he would be considered in the down command. Okay. If he were to be in a sitting position and he chose the sit and I said stay, then he'd be considered in the sit command. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if I say sit or if I said down and he performed it, the stay would already be implied. We don't layer it.
Right.
Okay.
Most training is sit, stay, down, stay. And then you walk away and a lot of times it's like stay, stay, stay.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Okay. It's I layer the stay if I need to, and the dog just holds. Okay. And we create the implication by simply correcting when the dog breaks the position.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the 9, that 7, 8, 9 class, we're transitioning all the training to the long leash. Okay. And that's how we start getting towards off leash. It's not like we do the training and then just take the leash off one day and then everything just works. I mentioned earlier, dogs tend to do a flight response, right? So if I walk them in a heel and I have them in a 6-foot leash, in my opinion, the dog recognizes I only have so much slack here, right? That they just stick with you. When you go to a long leash, it looks like there is no leash.
Yeah.
So when you start walking, sometimes the dogs go, but do I have to? Right? And then you'll see them stop and like literally watch, or you'll see them just kind of walk away. And in some cases, you'll see them go like, I don't want to do this, and they'll run. Okay. But because we have them on the long leash, they can only go so far. We obviously have to correct that. And what we're teaching the dog is 1, that's not an option. And then 2, how to correct the obedience at a greater distance.
Right.
Right. So if he runs 30 feet away and I correct him, he has to now fix heel from 30 feet away. Okay. Things that people in factor in when we're doing off-leash type stuff is environmental emergencies. Most common one's fireworks. You're at the park.
Oh, yeah.
It could be October. It could be Oz Park. A kid finds a random firework, blows it up. He gets spooked. He takes off.
Or like July 4th.
Yeah, July 4th, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But it happens when it's, because July 4th, you kind of go into knowing today is the day, right? And then the like a week around that, right?
Yeah.
But then when you're in October, you're not expecting some kid to blow up a firework.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where you get caught off guard. The dog gets caught off guard.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the most common things that people come to me with post-training, or like, hey, Jesse, like I was at the park and the kid blew a firework, but I returned my dog because I had my remote. And I go, that's exactly why we do remote collar training, because sometimes things happen. I've had dogs get spooked because of cars backfiring. I've had clients' dogs come across coyote in Lincoln Park.
Oh, geez.
Yes, I don't know if you know that there's coyote in Lincoln Park, especially along the lakefront where the zoo is. It's happened to me a couple times where I'm driving down that kind of boulevard and you'll see them running through the grass.
What?
Yes. I had one
I've
client.
never seen one.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I had one client. They were off of, I think it's Lincoln where the park is, just before like the stretch before the lake.
By Hotel Lincoln there?
Yes, exactly. In that park. He was walking with his wife, and his wife was anti-e-collar, okay? But he didn't care. He still got the dog trained. They were walking, having a conversation, and the dog was running around free roaming. Yeah. And then when they looked up, he was nose to nose to a coyote.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he said he recalled his dog. Dog returned, not even a hesitation.
Wow.
Right? So then he messaged me on Instagram. He goes, hey, Jesse, this happened. He's like, I'm so grateful I just chose to do e-collar training because I don't know what would have happened if my dog would have delayed. He's like, also, by the way, my wife loves e-collar.
Yeah, I was
now.
gonna say the wife is now totally convinced and bought in.
Yes, right? So things like that happen. I hope that they don't happen to anybody.
Of course.
But realistically speaking,
It's possible.
that's the variable.
Yeah.
So when clients ask me, do they have to e-collar to train their dog? I go, no, you don't have to. It's the only way that I train post 6 months. Okay. But if your dog's going to be off leash anywhere that's unenclosed, your risk for something happening is greater. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you're always at a dog park and it's always enclosed,
Yeah.
the only risk is, well, if your dog happens to slip out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's reduced. So I go, if you're not bothered by having to grab your dog every time they ignore you, then no, you don't have to. Who cares? Right? But if you're wanting ultimate freedom, where it's like, I can let my dogs off leash anywhere. Enclosed, unenclosed, doesn't matter if it's busy or surrounded by busy streets, whatever. I'm like, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
That's the nice part of it. I can bring my dogs anywhere because they're so well trained that they come across as service dogs, and they're not behaviorally reactive or anything like that. So that's just kind of the plus of doing the more advanced training and sticking to it, is that you just have the ultimate freedom in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay. Question on any of that stuff?
I don't think so.
How much does he weigh?
25.
25?
Yeah, give or take maybe.
Okay.
Probably
half,
take
if-
more than give.
Yeah.
So the collar I'd recommend for him is meant for a 35-pound dog and under. It's a smaller, low output collar.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Should be perfectly fine for him. So the way I describe them was we have low, medium, high, and high in terms of output.
Oh. Okay.
So high would be like a 70-pound dog and over, right? So like his collar max on it could be like 50 on the high-powered collar.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, you just get you're with the higher powered collar, you get more from less.
Okay.
Because he's on the smaller side, I don't think you need that much. It's perfectly fine to use on him. Like I could put on my 8-pound Chihuahua. It's perfectly fine.
Okay.
He's just gonna feel it at a much lower level than like a large dog would. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to have the security of like, well, in case there's an emergency situation and we're not really wanting to worry about, are we going to have enough
Yeah.
to override
I was
situation?
just gonna ask that.
Yes, you can go with the high-powered collar.
Okay.
It's about $100-ish in terms of price difference.
Okay.
You do get 10% off the system if you get it through us.
Okay.
The high-powered one is $350 with tax before discount. After discount, it's like $305-ish.
Okay.
The low-powered collar is like $240-ish with tax. Without the discount, would probably drop around $210-ish with the
Okay.
discount. Okay. And there's also a size difference, and I can show you guys too. Obviously, the higher powered one's going to be a bigger box, but it's curved, so it's not as obvious.
Oh, like sticking out there.
Yeah, like
The high-powered one is?
Yes,
Okay.
the old school ones used to be a square box.
Okay.
So it's just this thing like this.
Yeah.
Okay. The one that the lower power one is still a box, but it's small.
Okay.
So you don't really notice it as much, whereas the high
Got it.
powered one is curved. Okay. But you could do either or. Only reason why I present that is because it's like that. If you happen to be out and he's off leash and then something were to spook him, you have to override.
Like an ambulance honking or something.
Yeah.
Or,
Is what people don't account for is the fear factor, right? Is the dog's now running for their life. So when Melissa, for example, to correct Nash, right? She went to 127, and that wasn't even because he was scared. He just wanted to see his friend.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But she was able to override him and get him to return because she had the appropriate collar and then was willing to go all the way up there. Okay. So that's kind of just like rather have it and not need it type of
Yeah.
thing. But technically speaking, either should be fine.
Okay.
Okay. There's also a middle collar, but that one is still the old school, very
okay.
big boxy one. So I tell clients, well, if that's the case, you might as well just spend a few bucks more
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then get the bigger one, the better
Yeah.
one. Okay?
Right.
Question on any of that?
I guess like if we got the one for the 35 and under, I don't know if you can answer this, but like, would you think that he would need to be trained like almost all the way at the end of like that one's power? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, like would we have to use it all? No. I think he would be susceptible to the lower ranges.
Okay.
Not
So
that he
then
couldn't.
I'm saying like if we got the smaller one and we needed to use like the very high end, like would it be much of a difference from what he normally trains at with that collar?
It is. Like if he's at a 25, most dogs fall between 25 to 35.
Okay.
There's exceptions, but most dogs are in that range.
Yeah.
So if he is 25, right, you have 100 more levels.
Okay.
Right? But
Even with the small one.
Exactly. So
Just
it's the
crank it
same
and-
enough. It's
yeah.
it's the same number of levels, 127. It's just the output is different.
Okay.
So the 35 and under is a low output. So if you felt that in comparison to the high output at this like 30 and 30, they would feel very different.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the difference. So
So if he was then using the bigger collar, he wouldn't be 25 on
he
that
could
collar.
be lower, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, it could be like a 15 or
Okay.
Exactly.
the bigger one.
Or he could be 25, you know. But
That's true, too.
theoretically, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
But that's all stuff that we figure out.
Okay.
I've had very soft dogs, personality-wise, that like roll whenever you come to pet them and stuff.
Yeah.
Be very tough on the collar.
Yeah.
You know, because dogs are physical creatures; they bite each other, so they can have resiliency. So it's things that I unfortunately can't predict.
Yeah.
And I don't, because some clients will ask like, "Oh, what do you think my dog's number will be?" I'm like, "I don't know," and I don't
Yeah.
want to tell you because then you come in with the expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then if it's much higher,
we'd have a little
Yeah.
process of elimination
I'm
here.
sort of like feeling like he might be like, I don't know. He's just like such a good dog otherwise that I'm like, what if
Yeah. No,
we
I
do this and he's gonna be like, no, fuck this. Like,
Yeah.
I think he would be completely fine on the low-powered one.
Okay.
The only thing would be if there was an emergency situation.
Yeah.
That's where we don't know.
yeah.
I mean, that's where then like I could see at least like we would do like maximum setting, like if you had to recall an emergency thing, like max setting, click it,
Yeah.
and then he comes back.
yeah.
Hopefully,
But
yeah. Dogs override.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. But he's a smaller guy, so that's why I'm not really worried about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he was on the cusp, if he was
would just do-
35 pounds,
yeah.
then I would say I would just go with the
Go
bigger
bigger,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. But he's a smaller guy.
yeah.
And then like let's say we do the training for a couple of weeks, whatever, and like let's say his number is 70 on the little power collar. I'd probably say let's exchange that.
Okay.
Because we're at 70.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Okay.
So I had a schnauzer that I trained about the same size. It was like one of those miniature schnauzers or whatever. Her number was 80.
Whoa.
And you would see her like this.
Yeah.
But she would ignore anything below 80. And the owner was like, this is crazy. I go, yeah. I was like, look, do low and work your way up. And not
Yeah.
until you hit 80, all of a sudden, okay, yeah, I'll sit for you.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, it's not that
Yeah.
the dog doesn't know what to do. She knows what to do. She just don't want to do it until you're at 80.
Right.
You know, so if we found that out, then that's where I would say
Okay.
let's just exchange it and then upgrade to the bigger one.
Okay.
I don't have a problem doing that.
Doing that, maybe like starting with a smaller one. See
That-
how it
yeah.
does,
Yeah,
and then
I don't have an
if
issue
we
with that,
upgrade,
yeah,
we
yeah.
upgrade then.
Okay.
The only time I have an issue with the collar stuff is like I'll tell the client you want this one, and they'll turn around and they'll get the completely different one, and I'm like, I was like, I said that one for a reason,
Yeah.
but for you guys, you have the option, so that's not an issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
All right.
So
If we decide, because I think we were thinking 6 weeks, but now if you're saying you think 9 weeks, like is there a way that we could start with 6 and then if we felt like to add another 3, or do we need to commit to?
So the difference would be we don't prorate programs. So if you did 6, right, Tina's doing my calendar for 6, and then if you turn around and go, hey, I want 3 more, you'd pay the cost of 3. So it'd be a little bit more expensive.
Okay.
If you do 9 up front, it's cheaper because you're going, I want 9 classes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you do 6, the way I would formulate 6 versus 9 is different. Okay. So the other option would be, remember, not everything has to be off-leash reliable. Recall does, otherwise it's pointless.
Right.
It's nice to have an off-leash heel. And then, we could work on one stationary command. I don't do place off-leash because, we can, but realistically speaking, you wouldn't be with him like at a forest preserve walking with him off-leash with the dog bed with
Right.
you.
Right,
You would
yeah.
use down in that case,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So sit, down, heel, come, stay. Those I do off-leash. And if the owner requested place off-leash, you go, sure, we'll cover it. But realistically speaking, you're not going to have
Yeah.
that with you. Is if you did 6, we could do heel, recall, some stationary command, and then we can use the remaining, it'll probably be classes 5 and 6 classes to start building those things to an off-leash reliability. If you wanted all 6 commands to or the 5 commands to an off-leash level, then we're looking at 9. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah.
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 So So that's why I mean, like, I would formulate it differently.
Yeah.
So if you did 6 and go like, you know what, I actually want more commands to be off leash, it would have been a completely different program.
Okay.
Because then I would have done all 6 in the beginning
Right.
and then went to off leash at the end. Whereas now we
Right.
got to take a step back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing is that when I see how many classes we have, the way I plan it out is different versus if I have 9.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and then at the end of whatever program, whether it's 6 or 9, he won't already be off leash. Okay, it takes a lot of time and repetition before you get to that point. So generally, what ends up happening is, like, let's say you did 9. Once we hit class 7 or so, you will have all the exercises to start building towards off leash, and then you have to go and practice. And I might not see you for a month or 2.
Yeah.
And then you come back and go, hey, Jesse, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
And you show me what you're doing. A lot of times people misremember things. They do things incorrectly and they create bad habits.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, we got to fix that. So then I go, we fix it, give you a couple more exercises, go off, rinse and repeat.
So like at that point, it's like taking him to the dog park or like walking him off leash, like in the neighborhood, doing the exercises like at the park where there might be like
Where it's realistic.
people around or
Correct,
stuff like
yes.
that.
The first 6 to 8-ish classes are back to back because you're learning all the skills, right? But then it comes to a point where it's like, okay, well, if I want this level of control, I need a lot of time because you have to screw up, he has to screw up, you have to work past those screw ups. Sometimes you plan on going every day of the week and it's raining every day of that
Yeah.
week. You get sick, just life happens,
Right.
So I've had some clients where they've done the training and they'll finish like at the end of the summer, they'll do half the program and they'll go fall, winter, spring, and then they'll come back the following year and then we'll wrap up the rest of the stuff, but they'll come back and they'll have so much training done, at least the responsible ones. Some clients also forget and just like put it to the wayside. You know?
Yeah.
You guys I don't take you as those. I think you're very on the training.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. To get off leash control, you need time. And now I've learned instead of doing it back to back to back to back, is we start once they get to a certain point, we space it out.
Okay.
And like let's say 2 months pass and you had pre-scheduled your training and you show up and you're like, hey Jesse, we didn't get to practice that much. I would be like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Just tell Tina to reschedule it and push it out, because now we just have a wasted class. You get the most out of it when you're doing the work and then you go, okay, we think we've hit a plateau. Now we get back to Jesse, okay? Typically the last class is me going to the park with the owner and them taking their dog off leash for the first time, just because they want to have me there just in case,
Yeah.
But I've also had clients just do the off-leash stuff on their own, and then they'll come back and just be like, am I doing it right? So
Yeah. I feel like a little bit of that practice would be good. Like, again, like taking him in the neighborhood, just seeing how he does.
Yeah.
For, just to kind of see in real time, like, is he improving? Is he, getting more comfortable having it and coming back to us? And
Yep. Oh, he'll improve for sure. It's just a matter of, reinforcing it to the degree that he needs, right? I anticipate he's probably going to be pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
But like, let's say he happens to be tough to the collar. It's just that logical thing. Like if his number is 80 and you're like, but he's such a small dog, like it's hard to compute as the human.
Yeah.
And that's what people tend to struggle with.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm the one that like the dog example that came earlier, her name was Dee, the Schnauzer. It was hard for the owners to compute because she was like pretty much the same size.
Yeah, because you think about their body weight, their actual, physical
you don't think
appearance.
that they
Like,
would
I think about how high
charge
energy
'em.
he is. Like, I feel like that would make sense if he were a high
Like,
number.
charge 'em?
'Cause he's so, like,
yeah.
excitable.
Charge 'em.
Crank, click.
Other questions?
I don't think so. So in terms of like, how often do you do the classes in
Once
the
a week for an
beginning?
hour.
Once a week, okay.
For an hour, correct? Yeah. If you have like a time that works well for you and I'm available, like let's say it was Saturday at 12. Every Saturday at 12, I'd see you for X amount of weeks, right? And then like let's say you are doing the 9. Once we hit probably class 7, I'm gonna guess, is I'm gonna tell you like, okay, now I suggest you come back when you're ready for class 8.
Okay.
Okay. If we're doing the 6, then it might happen like around class 5 or so,
Okay.
where I'll say, okay, now you want to space out
Yeah.
before that last one or what
Yeah,
have you.
take some time to do it on your own, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And you always have my technical support. So if you're working on stuff, if you have a question, you just shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you. And I like to do a lot of problem solving via email because then we can make the most out of the actual classes when we're working on stuff. At some point, I'll be moving to Oz Park to do the training.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in our neighborhood, so we're
yeah.
very, very familiar with that place.
It's probably going to be limited. I used to do it every day of the week before, but now I have a number of responsibilities here. I also do the transport, so I pick up and drop off dogs for daycare. So during the week, it's going to be hard for me to go to Oz Park and then come back and make sure I'm on time to do transports.
Right.
So I'm probably only going to do Oz Park Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
And that's of course weather pending. If, like, let's say you schedule for a weekend, we're supposed to be in Oz Park, but the weather is bad, we would just meet here. We used to push people back, but then what would happen is my schedule would get backed up.
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes it'd be raining
Then
and
you're
raining and
overloaded.
raining. Exactly.
And
And then it was-
nobody needs that.
Exactly. So we've learned to just kind of keep it going.
Sure.
If it's a really important class, like I'll tell Tina, you know what, let's just push this back because it was supposed to be outside and it has to be outside.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste the class. But for the most part, we can get a lot of stuff done here.
Yeah.
And then it's still, and technically speaking, where we train doesn't matter. Like all my winter clients, we train here.
Yeah.
And then it's very common sense based. So if your dog's number is like 20 inside an empty building, then logic says it's probably going to be higher than 20 outside when there's
Could be
distraction.
40, could be
Exactly.
who knows what.
But we at least learned that much, you know?
Yeah, like what's a baseline?
Correct. But it's very straightforward. It's very common sense. I teach you guys how to think like me, essentially, how to troubleshoot.
Yeah.
Because life, unfortunately, isn't straightforward. Sometimes things are thrown at you, and you need to be able to think on the fly.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that e-collar allows you to do. Okay. Most common question that I get is, when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay, so that means if he's going to be outside on a walk, you'd have it on. Even if he's not going to be off leash. If you're going to go to the park, he's going to be off leash. Off leash, you'd have it on. You're going to go to a restaurant patio, maybe you're going to go for a nice little dinner. You want to bring him with you.
Yeah.
It's going to be on, right? Let's say you do need to fly with him. It's going to be on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, but if he's a great dog otherwise inside the home, don't need it. Take it off.
Yeah.
If it's a quick little potty break, run out and come back inside, you don't need it, right?
Yeah.
People are usually surprised too, and I tell them, like, even if the dog's not going to be off leash, to still have it on. Reason being is I've had clients' dogs unfortunately be attacked by off leash dogs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then in a few of the cases, they're able to return their dog because they had the collar on, and then the other owner was able to grab their dog. So situations like that, you know, I hope it doesn't happen, but
Right.
those are the things that people don't account for.
Yeah.
When doing the training correctly and following the instructions, the application is less and less and less and less over time.
Oh, tapers out, you're saying.
Exactly. So it'll be present. Like, you'll have it with you.
Right.
In case something happens.
You just won't, and
Exactly.
need the correction.
Yeah.
often.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it's a lot. And then as it gets better, it just starts to taper down. And then you hit a stride where it's like, we haven't touched this button in 3 months.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which creates complacency a lot of the time. And that's where the owners tend to experiment with, like, well, maybe I don't need the collar, right? And maybe they don't, but then it's like, again, that emergency situation where it's like, oh, I wasn't planning on that happening.
Right.
So like when I was in Logan Square, I was walking with my pit. My pit hates fireworks. And it was like I said earlier, it was like August, October. I'm walking with my dogs. I didn't put their e-collars on because I was like, I don't need it. We're just gonna go for a walk around the neighborhood.
Right.
And a random firework happened.
Just random
And then she was just like, the entire way home, just like pulling like crazy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have anything to override her anxiety from the firework. Whereas if I had my collar, I would have corrected her and it would have settled her down a bit to where I could walk her.
Right.
She'd still be anxious, but
Yeah.
she wouldn't be like dragging me home.
I get what you're saying though, with like long-term sense, it's just building the association with when you have it on, like it kind of just flips the switch to like, no, like you're not going anywhere.
Correct. It's a
In
cop
like the walking sense, or just being outside in public or stuff like that.
it's what I call like a cop on a collar. You guys drive?
Yeah.
You go on the expressway? Do you go the speed limit?
Most of the time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
I did
right?
see. By the way, I did see a lot of speed cameras. By the way, on Sheridan Lakeshore Drive now.
Oh, sure.
They put sneak ones now, where it's not the big like pole.
interesting.
They like fixed them. Like they look like a Starlink or like a Wi-Fi like box,
Interesting.
where they just have like 2 slits. Where it's like the flash on the bottom, the camera on the top. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
Did they get me or did they get someone else?
Yeah. No, I've noticed a couple new ones too.
Yeah. But anyway.
But you would drive better because now you know, like, okay, there's either a camera here or there's a cop, right? Because typically you can tell when there's a cop because everybody starts to slow down.
Yeah, you can see like where.
And then you see everybody speed up, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I like to call it a cop on a collar. When
Yeah.
it's present, the dog's going to behave better. It's going to be much more
It's like
obedient.
when he has his
his leader.
on.
Yeah.
And it's going to be even better than when he has his
Totally.
leader on.
Yeah.
It is definitely a game changer. Once you get an off-leash trained dog, like it's like, why would you do anything else?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I will say like he is a different dog when he has the leader on. I mean, he just walks at his own pace. Like, just he's a great dog with it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from all that training we did, months ago, like
Sure.
he's a great dog with it.
It's crazy to think that was just months ago too.
Yeah. We were looking at a few photos of him last night. And it's like, wow,
So
Yeah.
small.
just a little like
The
baked,
little guy.
little, like, baked potato.
My wife and I, we had a son
Yeah.
last July.
Nice.
And we have an app called Family Album, and you can like put up all your baby pictures, and it'll be like month 1, month 2, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then sometimes you open it, and it's like 8 months ago.
Oh,
Oh,
my
like a
gosh,
memories
yeah.
kind of thing or
Yes,
whatever.
and I look
Yeah.
at it, I'm like, he's so small. and
Yeah.
It's hard to think,
Yeah.
like, because he was like 5 pounds, and
Yeah.
now he's
Yeah.
like 20 pounds.
Oh my
And he's
gosh.
sitting up, and he's like crawling, and like
Yeah,
he
it's like a
smiles when
real
he sees
human
it.
now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, because I had my guys when they were puppies,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not one to take a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
So I have a few, but with
Yeah.
him we have tons of pictures.
Yeah.
So it's like you just see it. Yeah. Anything else?
I'm good.
I think so.
Okay. So if there's anything you may have forgotten to ask, you can ping Tina.
Okay.
If it's a question for me, she forwards it to me.
Okay.
I send it over, and then I also email her my recommendations. And then I also email her the information for the call or whatever.
Okay.
And then once you guys make up your mind, you let her know. If you want to expedite the process a little bit, if you tell her like, hey, sign us up for 6, and then you give her your availability.
Oh yeah, like a couple either
Exactly.
weekends or weeks.
It doesn't
or
have to
whatever.
be the same day every week, right?
It doesn't. If
Okay.
you have like a rotating schedule, that's fine. And then you just give it to us ahead of time,
Okay.
and she'll put you where she can.
Okay.
There might be a week or 2 where I don't see you.
Okay.
Okay, because
Yeah.
our schedules don't line
Yeah.
up.
Sure.
It doesn't have any impact on your training.
Yeah.
If anything, it just gives you more time to practice stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm a nurse, so like my schedule is different
Sure.
every week, and it would be nice for both of us to be
course.
present for the training
Yeah.
sessions. So
And there might be some where I'll be available, but like if you're really wanting to be at Oz Park or whatever, then that can
Right,
also
okay.
impact. But if you're like, sure, the only classes that are really nice to have at Oz Park are like obviously the long leash ones, and then heel is nice because you're teaching your dog how to heel in a distracting, busy environment.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary to the success of the program.
Okay.
Okay.
will we know which classes are those ones so
So
that
heel's
if we,
the first 2 classes.
Okay.
Oh, so yeah, right.
Yeah,
off the bat.
that's pretty standard.
Okay.
Yeah. The 3rd class typically is recall, unless the client wants to learn something else. So like after I've taught heel, I can pretty much go wherever we need to, but I try to get recall in as soon as possible because it takes the longest to get off-leash reliable.
Okay.
Okay, because it's the one that you don't get to use as much.
Sure.
The other thing is like once a dog understands there's consequence, they're apprehensive in the beginning to leaving your side.
Yeah.
So then now it's like, we got to fix this problem.
Yeah.
So a lot of the training is we fix certain problems, like we don't have reliable recall by creating reliable recall. But
Yeah.
then the problem that creates is, well, now my dog doesn't really want to leave my side.
Yeah.
So then we got to fix that problem. So it's kind of steps forward, steps back. It's normal. Once we hit a stride, then things are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But that's why I try to get recall in as soon as possible because I already know like there's going to be some hiccups there. And then the following classes are, however, but then if you have any questions, you can always ask about them because recall is the one that's like the most coordination heavy, comes with the most problems and questions and stuff like that, that we have plenty of time to kind of get all that stuff squared away.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
But that's pretty much it. Anything else?
I'm
I
good.
don't think so.
I'm good.
I think we'll probably just email Tina and
Yeah.
get ready to sign
Get
up.
some dates locked in.
Yeah, mull it over, think about it, and then she'll get you all situated. And then, like I said, if you have any questions, you let me know. And then if you don't already, because I'll be recording the training sessions and I send them to you as for future reference, you'd also be able to just ask me any training questions directly. Okay.
Sure.
So, yeah, but looking forward to working with this guy
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
We're excited.
Right, Finn?
How much does he weigh now?
Like
25.
25 even.
25 pounds? Oh,
He
yeah,
really-
that's right, because you told me.
Yeah.
Duh.
He really has not made any.
He's pretty lean, if I'm being honest. Like he is like when he runs around the dog park. I mean, he's like a D1 athlete. Like
I was going to say,
Yeah.
he must be like a little sprinter.
He's so
Yeah,
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you can see where he tapers out very quickly. Once he has a few long sprints, he'll taper out, and then when he'll like lay down, kind of like this, but just like lay there, like pant a little bit, it's like Yep, you're done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're kind of capped out.
Was he like doodle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you expecting like a big dog, small dog? Is this exactly what you wanted?
He is the very end of the range that they gave us. And like, they told us 25 to 35 pounds.
Oh, okay.
And he's 25 probably right now, but when he gets a haircut, he's like 24. Like, I'm not kidding. It probably
funny.
takes off a good chunk of hair. And he's on the shorter side of what they told us too.
Yeah.
So he's like, because the way the breeder we went to did it, like, they have, like, toy, I think, was the size below him. And some of the toys, they said, like, 15 to 25 pounds. And then
Oh, that's interesting.
his mini size was 25 to 35. So I feel like he's closer to the toy end.
Yeah.
Because his parents were a mini poodle, and the dad was 9 pounds, and then it was a mini golden doodle, and the mom was 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then they give the same range for mini golden doodles that are bred with like a full retriever and then like a mini poodle or something too, which I would think like those ones would be inherently bigger than.
Yeah, because since they're newer, they're not really regulated, so you don't really know what you're gonna get size-wise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had 2 clients a few years back. One wanted like a large doodle, and the other one wanted but this was like, it was like tiny, it was like 8 pounds.
Like the
Yeah.
toy or
Yeah, the
whatever.
toy, yeah. And they got the opposite dogs.
Yeah.
So the one that
way.
got the toy, wanted the toy, got the big one, and the one that wanted the big one got the tiny one. Yeah, it was funny because I had them at the same time, and they had the same stories. I'm like, you guys should just swap.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
But he's great. I mean, for living in a condo with like
Yeah,
no backyard like readily available and everything, like he's great.
Yeah.
And he's big enough to like if we wanted to pick him up in the elevator, like we can scoop him up like a toddler and
yeah.
and all that.
No, he's a good size. I mean, I've had a few big dogs, and now I'm just like, I'm no more big dogs.
Really?
I actually want a Brussels Griffin, a new Griffin. Have you seen those?
I don't think
They're the
so.
funky face-looking dogs.
I'll have to look it
It-
up.
yeah, I think it's Brussels Griffin or Brussels New Griffin is the breed.
Gotcha.
But they got like an underbite. Like they're ugly dogs.
Yeah.
But my wife's like, no, like we're not getting that dog.
Little tooth hanging out right
Yeah,
then.
yeah, exactly.